There's a moment most people don't talk about. You're sitting in your car, the engine is still running, and for some reason you can't get out. Not because you're tired, not because you're lazy, but because something in you is holding on to something you can't control anymore. And the strange part is the thing you're holding on to isn't even there anymore. Let me show you why. Something happened, or nothing happened. It doesn't always need a reason. Sometimes the weight just lands on a Tuesday in a parking lot, in the middle of an ordinary life, and you sit there letting the engine run because you can't quite make yourself turn the key the other way. That feeling, the one that keeps you in the car, that's not weakness. That's holding on. And I don't mean that as criticism. I mean it the way a doctor means it when they say your hand is clenched. That's what's happening. That's what's keeping you here. There was a man a long time ago, the story is in the old Pali texts, told quietly without drama, a man who had been shot by an arrow, poisoned arrow, deep in his side. He was in pain. And someone came to help, someone who could remove the arrow, and the man held up his hand and said, "Wait, wait, before you do anything I need to know some things. Who shot this arrow? What was his name? Was he tall or short? What was the bow made of? What kind of feathers were on the shaft?" The man asking these questions was lying there bleeding. And the person trying to help him just stood there with their hands open. This is not a story about foolishness. The man with the arrow wasn't stupid. He was doing what minds do. He was trying to understand before he could let go. He needed the full picture. He needed the why and the who and the what kind of feathers, because if he could understand it completely, maybe then it would make sense. Maybe then it would hurt less. Maybe then he could release it. But the arrow was still in his side, and the understanding he was looking for was not going to remove it. Think about the last thing you couldn't stop thinking about. Not the big things are obvious. The small ones. The conversation from 3 weeks ago that you keep replaying in the shower, in traffic, just before you fall asleep, trying a different version each time. What you should have said. What they should have said. What it means that they said what they said. You are the man with the arrow, and the arrow is not the conversation. The arrow is the replaying. There's a word that gets used a lot when people talk about Buddhism: detachment. And I want to be honest about how that word lands for most people, because it landed wrong for me for a long time. It sounds like not caring. It sounds like distance. It sounds like the kind of calm that's actually just numbness with better posture. The monk who doesn't feel. The saint who floats above it all. The person in the meditation app who breathes perfectly and never checks their phone at 2 in the morning. That's not what this is. What it actually is, and this is hard to say without it sounding like another concept, what it actually is more like knowing the glass is already broken. There's a teacher, Ajahn Chah, who used to hold up his glass, a simple drinking glass, and he'd say, "I already consider this glass broken. I enjoy it. I drink from it. It's beautiful in the light. And when the day comes that it falls, when my hand slips, or a child knocks it from the table, I'll say, of course." He wasn't being cold about the glass. He wasn't detached from it in the sense of not caring. He was saying, I see what it is. I see that it is impermanent. And that seeing, that clear-eyed looking at the thing, is the thing that lets you love it without needing it to be forever. The hardest part about this is that it runs against everything we've been taught to do with love. We've been taught that love means holding on, that caring means not letting go, that if you stop gripping, you've stopped valuing. But think about what gripping actually does. Think about holding sand. The tighter the fist, the faster it falls. Not because the sand is leaving you, because your hands are the wrong shape for keeping it. Here is what no one says about the thing you can't let go of. The holding on, it doesn't keep the thing in place. The thing is already moving, already changing, already becoming something else. The holding on only keeps you in place. You are the one who stops. The thing goes on without you. And so you end up standing in the same spot, holding a shape that used to match something real, wondering why nothing fits anymore. I want to tell you about something small. A woman at a kitchen table. It's late, past the time when the house should be quiet. She has a phone in her hand and she's gone through every text conversation she has with this person looking for the moment things changed. She can feel the moment. She knows it happened. She just can't find it. She's scrolling back months. The timestamps say 11:47 p.m. Outside the window, nothing is moving. She is trying to understand something that has already happened, as if understanding it will make it unhappen, or make it make sense, or make it her fault, which would be almost better, because at least if it's her fault, there's something she could fix, something she could have done differently, something she could do now. But there is nothing to fix. There never was. And somewhere underneath the scrolling, somewhere she isn't looking, she already knows that. The word in Pali, the language of the earliest Buddhist texts, the word that gets translated as attachment, is upadana. And one of the things it literally means is fuel. What you cling to feels like it feeds you, but it feeds the fire too. You hold on to the person and the holding keeps you warm, because as long as you're holding, you're still in relation to them. You still exist in the story. The story isn't over. The version of you that loved them is still alive somewhere in the grip, but the fire doesn't care what it burns. This is the part that took me a long time to understand. Letting go isn't something you do to the thing. You don't put it down and walk away. That's not how it works. That's not how anything works. Letting go is something that happens in the hands. The hands have to stop believing that gripping is helping. And they only stop believing that when they can feel, really feel, not just understand as a concept, but feel in the body, that nothing is being kept by the keeping. That the thing you're holding is already changing, already gone in some sense, already a different shape than the one your hands remember. There's a moment in the suttas, and I keep coming back to this one because it's so strange, where the Buddha is asked by a student, what happens to an enlightened person after they die? Do they continue? Are they reborn? Do they cease to exist? Do they both continue and cease? And the Buddha stays quiet. The student tries again. Different angle, same question. Silence. One more time. Careful, precise, philosophical. Silence. And finally, the Buddha says something like, the question doesn't fit the reality. It's the wrong shape for what is actually there. I think about this whenever I try to ask, how do I let go? Because the question assumes a how. It assumes a technique. It assumes that if you get the method right, the hands will open. But the hands open when the hands are ready. And the hands get ready by looking very clearly, without flinching, without softening, at what is actually in them. Not what you wish was there. Not what used to be there. Not what you're afraid of losing. What is actually there. There's a kind of suffering that's quiet. That doesn't announce itself. You're fine, you're functioning. You're answering emails and making dinner and laughing at things that are actually funny. But somewhere underneath, there's this low hum, this almost sound. The way a refrigerator runs in the background of a room and you don't notice it until it stops. That hum is the holding. Most people live their entire lives inside that hum and call it normal. The Buddhist word for suffering, dukkha, it doesn't just mean pain. It comes from a word that means a wheel that doesn't fit its axle, a wheel that's slightly off-center, that wobbles. That makes that sound, not broken, not stopped, just never quite running smooth. And most of us, most of the time, don't ask why the wheel sounds like that. We just drive faster to drown out the sound. What would it be like to simply stop? Not stop everything, not retreat, not give up, just stop, right here, right now, for 30 seconds. Let the sound be what it is. Let the hum be the hum. Let the thing you're carrying be the thing you're carrying, not solved, not released, not fixed, just seen. Held up to the light the way Ajahn Chah held up the glass. Ah, there you are. I see what you are. I see that you are already changing. I want to go back to the man with the arrow. Because the story doesn't end with the question. The Buddha in the sutta doesn't say, here is a better set of questions to ask. He doesn't say, here is the right information you were looking for. He says, none of that matters. Not because the questions are bad, because there is an arrow in your side and you are losing time. The only thing that matters is the arrow and whether you're willing to let it be removed. And here is the thing no one says about that story. The man has to stay still for that to happen. He has to stop asking. He has to let someone near the wound. He has to be present for the pulling out, which is going to hurt in a different way than the having been shot. This is what people miss about letting go. It isn't painless. It isn't the absence of pain. It's being willing to feel the right pain instead of the wrong one. The wrong pain is the hum. The constant, low-grade background ache of holding something you can't hold. The right pain is the moment of release, which is actually a moment of loss, because you are losing the version of yourself that organized itself around the grip. That's what letting go costs. Not the thing you're releasing, yourself, the version of yourself that needed to hold it. You won't be the same person on the other side of this. That's not a promise. That's just what's true. The person who opens their hands is not the same person who made the fist, and sometimes that's frightening enough to keep the hands closed. There's a teaching very old, very simple that I can't improve on and won't try to. In seeing, just seeing. In hearing, just hearing. In contact with the world, not adding, not subtracting. Not deciding what it means. Just what is here. When you look at the thing you can't let go of, when you really look at it, what is actually there, not the story about it. Not the fear about what it means, not the memory of what it was. What is here right now in this moment? Most of the time when people look that clearly, what they find is almost nothing. A feeling in the chest, a tightness somewhere unnamed, the memory of a voice, a shape in the mind that doesn't quite resolve, that's it. The thing you've been holding, the thing you've organized your days around, the thing that keeps you in the parking lot, it's just that. A feeling, a shape, a sound without a source. Not because it wasn't real, not because it doesn't matter, because that's what all of it is finally, experience, sensation, contact and the memory of contact. And the mind, reaching after it, holding the shape of it, the mind is what's making it heavy. The raft that carried you across the river, there's a story the Buddha tells about this. The raft is useful. It gets you across. You needed it. It worked. And then you reach the far shore. And you have a choice. You can put the raft down and walk into the new land. Or you can lift the raft onto your back and carry it with you because it served you once and you don't quite trust the new ground to hold you. Most of us are walking around with very heavy rafts. Here is the closest thing I can offer to a practice, not a technique, not a step. Just this, the next time you notice the hum, the low-grade carrying, the background ache, don't try to stop it. Don't analyze it. Don't ask who shot the arrow. Notice it and see it for what it actually is. That's all. I'm carrying something. My hands are full right now. There's a hum, just see it. Because the seeing, just the clear, honest, non-judgmental seeing of it, is already different from being inside it. The moment you notice you're gripping, you're already not entirely consumed by the grip. Something in you is watching. Something in you is already a little outside it. That's something that's not nothing. There's a fire that goes out. Another story from the suttas. A monk asks, where does the fire go when it's extinguished? Does it go north, south, east or west? And the answer is, the question doesn't fit the reality. The fire doesn't go anywhere. It simply stops being fed. What you're holding on to, it isn't going to go somewhere. You aren't going to release it and have it vanish. It will just stop being fed, and it will cool, not overnight, not all at once, not without some grief for the warmth it provided, but it will cool. And where the heat was, you'll find something you forgot was there. Just this moment, this breath. This present, ordinary, unremarkable now, which has been here the whole time, patient and unhurried, waiting for you to stop looking past it. The woman at the kitchen table, I think about her. At some point, she put the phone down. I don't know when. I don't know what made her. Maybe nothing made her. Maybe her hand just got tired. She put the phone face down on the table. And for a moment, just a moment, there was nothing. No scrolling, no searching, no next thing, just the kitchen, just the quiet. Just the fact of being there, unremarkable and present in the way that 2 a.m. sometimes is very still, very real. She was just there. Not okay exactly. Not okay, just there. That moment, that ordinary, exhausted, accidental moment, that's what we're talking about. Not enlightenment, not transcendence, not the 7 lessons and the stronger version of yourself. Just the kitchen at 2 a.m., just the hand resting, just what is here actually here when you stop reaching for what isn't. In seeing, just seeing, you're probably already doing it. You've been doing it in fragments your whole life. Every time the trying stopped for just a second and something quiet came through, you might already know which moment it was. The one you can't quite describe when someone asks. The one that wasn't anything, really, a parking lot, a kitchen table, a breath you noticed by accident, and somehow mattered more than you can explain. That thread doesn't end here. It goes somewhere this video can't follow. If something in here stayed with you, you probably already know where it stayed. I'll see you in the next one.